kids. Hey, I am gonna hopefully increase your capacity to understand capacitance and specifically like, hey, look, I have a series circuit here. See how these resistors are all in series with some capacitors in my series circuit attached here. And then typically in this class, you're asked things like, hey, tell me about the initial conditions. So like, tell me about the initial current. Tell me about if these were light bulbs. Tell me about their brightness. And then typically in this class, you're going to be asked at the very end, after the circuit's been on for a long time, what happens and why. So let's talk about this and make sure it makes sense. Because remember, physics should make sense. If physics doesn't make sense, you're doing it wrong, okay? All right, so if you take a look, I have a circuit here. So here's the best thing to do with capacitors, or really any circuit, is kind of trace how the current's going to go around. So at the start, remember, if for this capacitor, if it is uncharged, you are right there, okay, on your QV. This one, if it's also uncharged, you are also right here on your QV because it has no charge. Well, if there's no charge in there, then initially, here's what the current is going to do. The current is going to go like this. Do we see that? Okay, so the current, it's going to be like, hey, this is not even in my circuit. That's not even in my circuit. So really, I would only have one 20 ohm resistor in my circuit, okay, initially to start. Hopefully that makes sense, okay? Remember, if this has no charge, the charge is going to add to here, and then it's going to go like this, which is why initially this acts like a closed switch, because it would be exactly the same as if I did that. Do we understand that okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so initially, okay, again, my current is going to go like that, okay, which means initially, here's my initial conditions, I would only have this, okay, so like, what is my current flowing through here? Nothing. Current flowing through here? Nothing. What's the voltage across here? Nothing. What's the voltage across here? Nothing. See, look, voltage across there at the start is nothing. Voltage across here at the start is nothing. So that this is going to have 10 volts across it, and if it has 10 volts across it, it's going to have a half an amp because of my very nice equation, so that this whole circuit initially at the start would have 0.5 amps, and my 20 ohm resistor would have 10 volts, would have that 0.5 amps. It would have 10 volts. This whole circuit at the start would be using, or would have a power rating of 5 watts. It'd be converting 5 joules per second, okay? Does everybody follow that okay? Hopefully it makes sense. All right, so then we're going to kind of do the same thing with our steady state. So after this has been on for a long, long time, and our capacitors are like fully charged for this circuit. So then what's going to happen to the current? So let's trace it. All right, well, if this capacitor is fully charged, that means no more charge can go this way. Well, so then which way is the current going to go? It's going to go like this. Oh, you're going to trace it around. If you trace it around, that is a series circuit with 3 light bulbs in series. Oh, how do you find the total resistance in a series circuit? You just add them up. So 20 plus 15 plus 5 is 40. If you use your very nice equation, that means in this circuit, each light bulb, once it's fully charged, would get 0.25 amps, 0.25 amps, 0.25 amps, and then you could figure out your voltage. So if you plug it in, your voltage for this guy would be 5 volts. For this guy, this one I'm going to have to use a calculator. 15 times 0.25, 3.75. And then this one has to be, if you do your loop rule going around, this is 5, that's 3.75. This had better be 1.25, and if you plug it in your calculator, you see it is 1.25. I love how everything works out. It's just a big puzzle with circuits, okay? And you could find the power for everything. If I was to ask you, hey, what's the total current flowing in this circuit at the end? It's 0.25 amps. What's the total resistance of this circuit at the end? It's 40 ohms, okay? So again, trace it with your finger. Well, now, if I was to ask you about the capacitor, okay? So this capacitor, we've got to a point where, hey, look, the slope represents the capacitance, that this value, okay, right here, would be 3.75 volts. Okay, because I am across that resistor, that's the voltage of that resistor. That should make sense. Okay, if I wanted to find how much charge is stored in that, well then I could use I always think about it like this, because remember the slope is my C, so if I took 10 times 3.75, the charge in this capacitor would be 37, let me use a different color, would be 37.5 microcoulombs of charge. And then if you wanted to, if you found the area here, 1/2 base times height, that would be your energy that's stored in that capacitor, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. For this one, hey look, this one is only gonna charge to 1.25 volts, so it's only gonna charge to here, but the slope has to be twice as steep. Why? Because the slope is the capacitance, and this capacitance is twice as much that one, so then you could figure out how much charge is stored in there. So this one I'm gonna have to use a calculator for, so if I go 1.25 times 20, you would get 25, so there would be 25 microcoulombs of charge in this capacitor. And then if you wanted to, again, you could find the area of this, okay, where you would say this is 25 microcoulombs, this is 1.25 volts. So you'd go 1/2 this times this equals the energy stored in your capacitor, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Remember, understand, don't memorize, okay? That your capacitor, once it is fully charged, is gonna act like an open switch. Why? Because charge can't go that way anymore, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Bye, kids.